Well, so welcome to the first episode of the Crucible catch-ups. So we're doing these now, coming out every Wednesday morning, just during the period while we've got the Crucible and the greatest show, if you like, and we'll do that until early May when we're reflecting at the end of it. So it's myself, Writer74, Michael Wright. I'm your host, and I'll let Lee say hello to himself.
Hi everyone, welcome. Good to have you here.
And we have a third person as well. So we have Snooker Superstar Brian Dobson over on my left as I'm looking.
Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Looking forward to continuing our chat.
So great. So anybody who caught last week, in fact, last week it was only Saturday, so we got this one out. We had a preview with super fans, and we introduced our predictor game, which you can obviously play along with at home if you want to do that. So I'll give a quick update on the scores for that as well while we go. But we met Brian, we met front row Brian as well, who I don't know about you, but I've seen a couple of times on the footage so far. And Kelly's obviously out and about as well around the Crucible and meeting the great and good. I think there's a picture of her with Barry Hearn today. So lots of fun really. So what do you make of it, guys? I mean, obviously it started Saturday. We're now 4 days in. Any early reflections? What have you thought so far?
Go on, Lee, I'll let you take this one away.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Well, personally, I think the standard's been incredibly high. You know, there's a lot of breaks going in. There's been a few shocks, as you would expect, you know, in the first round. But yeah, overall, the standard's really high, and there's been some really good matches, close matches as well.
Yeah, what do you think, Brian? Yeah.
I'd just like to echo that, really. I think the standard's been very strong. So some great century breaks. I think we've had you know, some great pots in a lot of the matches. Very close matches. For me, I think the standout for the seeded players for me so far has been Mark Williams. I think he's played exceptionally well against Michael White, and I think from the qualifiers. I've got to say, and you tipped this, Michael, as well, is Jackson Page, which thought Jackson played terrifically well. You know, his keep control, his confidence, his break building, terrific.
Yeah, I didn't want to be too smug about that, but oh, hang on. So just for everybody listening or watching, I've got not a 7-week-old because I haven't just borrowed one, but I've got our own 7-week-old in the Moses basket over here. So we've got some co-commentary going on in the background. Yeah, I mean, Jack, the confidence that he just attacked Barry Hawkins with, and later in the frame there, and later in the match, he was just. I mean, I think he played with the wrong hand in the last shot just to mess about a bit. I mean, and they were saying that on the commentary, they were saying a lot about the debutants and how going back in history, they don't tend to win their first games at the Crucible. He was fantastic. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I thought Jackson was really impressive. And I think to finish off the match the way he did, with 2 century breaks to finish off, I thought was incredible, really. He looked confident all the way through the match, and I thought, you know, before the match started, I tipped Hawkins to win. I just thought the experience would bring Hawkins through, but the way Jackson finished it off and the way he looked during the match was incredible. And watch out Mark Williams in the second round, I think.
Yeah, and of course they're I think they're practice partners, aren't they? I mean, they're going to know each other inside out, and I think Williams is kind of quoted quite heavily and for years now, saying that Page is a real up and coming star to watch. So he's seen this coming. That's going to be fascinating, isn't it? Who else are you looking at in the draw so far who hasn't played?
Well, who hasn't played, Michael? I'd say
we're Kyron and King tomorrow, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, that could be a cracker, couldn't it? It's a hard one to call that. You wouldn't be surprised whoever won that match. I'm also looking forward to Brissell and Senkam. I think that'll be a really close match. And I mean, everywhere you look in the draw, there's quality. So, you know, we've got some great viewing over the next couple of days before the second round.
Did you get the chance to watch any of Ronnie? Obviously, Ronnie and Gilbert, that could have been a banana skin for for the seed and for the greatest player of all time, really. But did you catch much of that? Many reflections on how that went?
Yeah, I managed to catch most of that match, and Dave started off really well. I thought he was potentially going to be in with a shout of causing an upset at one stage. He was 3-0 ahead, and Ronnie started to fight back, and then towards the end of the match there was a bit of a turning point. I can't remember exactly the frame score, but it looked like Dave was going to come within one frame or certainly level, and it went Ronnie's way, and kind of Ronnie just pulled away after that. But I thought Dave acquitted himself well, but just not enough power to overcome Ronnie.
Of course, Brian, Dave was very honest when he was asked who he wanted in the draw or who he didn't want in the draw. He named the big guns, so it was pretty honest of him. And it's always going to be a hard game against Ronnie. Ronnie, you think maybe he's not playing at his best at times, but when you look back at the breaks that he's made in the matches, it's impressive reading, isn't it?
Absolutely. He was very solid. I mean, we've seen him better, we've seen him worse. I think he was somewhere in the middle, but he was consistent throughout, and just too much firepower, I think, for Dave.
Yeah, and also another match that's finished is Bingham and Haushan, 10-5 to Bingham. Bingham looked really impressive, 140 break in that match, and also plenty of other breaks over 50. So he's sort of, I think he'll progress through quietly. There's not a lot been said about Bingham.
Yeah, well, he's kind of come under the radar a little bit, but he's such a Crucible campaigner, of course, champion in 2015. He's certainly got the game to go far in the tournament. He was solid. He was solid, definitely.
Yeah, and is Judd playing tomorrow? Is that when Judd comes in?
Yes,
tomorrow?
I believe he is. Yes, I believe Judd is playing tomorrow. Yes, against Hassan Tafari.
Yeah, so we've got a great bit of viewing tomorrow with Judd and Kyron Wilson, Ding Junhui. So tomorrow's going to be a sort of action-packed day.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. But obviously difficult to pick a winner in both those games, I would suggest.
Yeah, is there anybody else that sort of caught your eye in the first round?
Yeah, I think from the top seeds, as I say, Mark Williams certainly impressed me, but I think apart from that, I would say for myself was Zhao Jintong. I thought he was very confident, very flowing. Didn't seem to be overawed by the Crucible at all. He's got to be in with a shout. Got to be in with a shout. I'm sure his odds have reduced drastically.
Yeah, I was wondering myself how we'd cope first round. Against Clark, who's been impressive form himself. But when you look at the stats, it's been 850 plus breaks for Xingtong, so, and a 10-2 scoreline. So it seems to put nerves he's had.
Absolutely, I think I had that one down as maybe a 10-5 scoreline. I thought Clark would do a little bit more damage, but he was frozen out effectively, and just was the dominance of Xintong. So 10-2's got to be a terrific result for him.
Yeah, fantastic there. And also we've got John Higgins and Tetra Nu. They're in progress at the moment, and it's 5-4 to Tetra. That's going to be a close finish, I think.
I think so. This could go all the way. My tip was the Tetra to pip John Higgins here. Whether he does remains to be seen, but it's certainly going to be a close one. Certainly going to be close. I think John has battled in that one a little bit, and I think of the styles of play, probably Tetra didn't really want to come across someone of the caliber of John first round, but he's definitely capable of causing an upset. And I think he seems to have come into this tournament you know, not thinking it's a first round of Crucible. I'm going to just play my own game. I think this is going to go all the way.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a little bit of experience now as Tetra. You know, he's had some terrible draws, to be fair. First round draws, he's had Higgins twice, Ronnie, and I don't know, another one of the big guns he's had. So it's been a tough road for Tetra, but I'm sure that stands him in good stead going forward, and he'll come into his own, and he looks quite impressive at the moment.
I think so too. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, is there anyone else that's caught your eye, Brian, in the first round? I mean, they've all been pretty impressive matches. The Selby match, that was a close match.
Yeah, it was, and you know, Selby certainly wasn't at his best. I thought he looked a little bit edgy. Yeah, in the first round, his long game didn't seem to be quite as sharp as it possibly was. Obviously, we know he's had some problems off the table, but he did, as the match progressed, he seemed to get stronger and stronger, and he's certainly going to be a handful for Yang Bingtao in the second round. So that's going to be a very difficult one to call as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Michael? Anybody caught your eye?
Well, I was. Anybody who's watching on YouTube has just seen our youngest contributor now. I'm just hoping that I can keep him settled. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was interested to see how Ashley Hugel got on with Neil Robertson. You know, we've obviously talked with Ian McCulloch now a few times, and he's doing some work with Ashley. And I don't know. I think it was on the hiding to nothing in a way, because he didn't have any pressure on him. But he wasn't expected to do a lot. He did well in the opening session. Obviously, kind of went toe to toe. After that, the class kind of will out, really, didn't it? And yeah. But I'm not sure I learned much about what shape Neil's in, apart from he did what you might expect. I'm not sure what we learned about him from the first round.
Yeah, I'd probably go along with that. I think it was difficult to say, really. He was a bit untested. It was solid, but not really at his imperialist best, I don't think. But we'll see as the tournament goes on.
And it was also always going to be hard for Hugel to, you know, to play well in that match. But I thought he did play well, and he looks like quite a competent QS. He really impressed me, and I think sort of going forward, having Ian McCulloch in his dressing room, so to speak, I think that'll stand him in good stead.
For sure.
I think I saw that on social media as well. I think he's got Matt Andrews working with him on the mentoring side of things. So clearly what's coming through, and I'm not sure whether this was always the case, but it just seems that there's more of the mental side now. You know, we've had no Flannery on as well, and seems to be more of almost a backroom team helping some of the guys now, and kind of assembling around them to look at the technical side and the mental side of it as well. And kind of interesting, isn't it, to see how these guys are preparing and what support they've got at the Crucible now as well.
Well, I think, as we all know, it's such a mental game, and I think unless you're on top of that, you know, you're going to struggle. So I think it's become so important, not only in snooker but in so many sports.
Yeah, Mark Allen. What about Mark Allen? He again, Scott Donaldson, a tough opponent, and he really could have gone either way, that one, but Allen just kind of came through. I don't know if you saw the interview afterwards, but they were talking to him, and it sounded like he's having a rough few months and almost came into this just thinking, I've just got to throw everything at it. But always a real chance, isn't he? Always a dark horse for getting deep in.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mark, he's never far away from playing well. I think something can click with Mark, and that'll be him off and running. He's such a great positional player, and also he's got bags of experience now. I was hoping Scott might have pushed him a little bit closer. I thought Scott played well, and I think there's a lot more to come from Scott. You know, Championship League winner. He practices really hard, so we've not heard the last of Scott, but it was a great performance from Mark.
Yeah, I'd go along with that. I think Mark looked a little bit edgy at times, but I think, you know, obviously he did enough. There was a particular snooker that Scott led on pink and black remaining, which was an absolutely got to be a contender for shot of the championship. It was a terrific snooker. But as you'd expect, Mark had a bit too much firepower, I think, for Scott. But I fancy the second round with Ronnie. I think that would be a lot closer than people may think, because I think Mark tends to raise his game with the bigger players. And I think that would be a close one too.
Yeah, and of course Mark's beat Ronnie at the Crucible as well, you know, back in the day. So Mark will not hold any fears over who he's playing, I don't think. I think he just worries about his own game, and if he plays well, he's got a great shout to win in that match.
Yeah, I'd agree with that as well.
One game I don't think was mentioned, but you know, was one of the ties of the round really, and a big gun was always going to go out, but it saw one of the seeds go, and last year's finalist Sean Murphy. I don't know if you guys saw much of that, but Murphy Maguire always could have gone either way, but yeah, in the end, went right to the wire pretty much.
Yeah, it was quite a turgid match from the bits that I saw. It seemed quite a bit of a slog. I don't think either player was at his best. I did fancy Murphy to edge it when he went 8-7 ahead. He seemed to sort of grasp the match by the scruff of the neck, but not to be. And Maguire came back. Maguire played his best stuff, I think, right at the very end. But I don't think it was particularly one of the easiest matches watching that one. It seemed a bit of a tough one, but you know, no quota given from both of them. But I think you know, I think that, you know, the right man won in the end. I think Maguire was stronger at the end.
Yeah, I think it was certainly a match for for the purists. Before it started, I thought anybody could win that match, really. And I believe there was a bit of a crazy frame. I think it was frame 14. I think it was fully incident, and it was a 70-minute frame. So, you know, certainly one for the purists there.
Definitely.
And then, well, a couple that we haven't really talked about, but you know, one of the other big ones we had, well, just today, I think, just concluded. Yang Bingtao has seen off Chris Wakelin. We thought that was going to be, well, in fact, we had contrasting views on that one. Kelly actually thought Chris might edge that one. I think the rest of us said that we thought that was going to go the way of Bingtao, but again, kind of Bingtao just does this, doesn't he? He kind of sees off the opposition, and he always looks like he's a good bet to go a long way through, doesn't he? And he's just got something about him that looks like it's just improving as he goes, really, each tournament.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. He seems to be a sort of a Selby kind of style of game, and I think he's got a never say die attitude. He seems to be, certainly maturing in shot selection, and he's certainly going to be a tough handful. I think that's going to be quite a fascinating match, actually, with Mark. I think so some good. What seems to be developing is some very, very interesting second round matches, based on what we've seen so far.
Yeah, I think just a word for Chris Wakelin as well. I thought he started the match really well. There was a few times that Jan had 50-60 breaks, and Chris cleared up to take the frame. So I thought he'd done really well. Yan Bingtao, 1150 plus breaks in that match, which is quite incredible. But as you say, Brian, some tasty second round matches coming up.
Definitely.
What about talking points from the game so far? Is there anything that's caught your eye on social media or just from any of the commentary? The one that stuck with me so far is the one where I think Ronnie's they've recorded Ronnie doing a hand gesture as he came away from the table there. I don't know. I mean, normally that wouldn't necessarily get noticed, would it? But it's all over social media, so even if you didn't catch it, you will know about it now. Was that naughty, or is that just can you do that? Is that okay?
What do you think, Lee?
Sorry, Brian. Personally, I think it's a bit naughty. He's got form for this. He got told off once before from Michaela Tab for the way he was sort of wiping his cue, let's say. So he's got a bit of form for this. Yeah, I thought it's a bit naughty. I mean, he's supposed to be an ambassador for the game. People look up to him, so yeah, a little bit naughty.
Yeah, I've got to go along with that as well. Just you've got to think about, this is on TV. There's sponsors. There's a bigger picture here, and to be doing things like that's a bit childish. I think. I think there was a bit of mouthing also from Stephen Maguire in his match, which didn't, if you can lip read, was pretty obvious what he'd said as well. I don't really think we want to see that sort of stuff on the box, to be honest.
It's difficult, isn't it? Like when you watch the football, you always see the players with their hands over their mouths now, because they know that every move and everything that they say is somebody's going to pick up on it and report on it. And it's the same in the Crucible, isn't it? You're kind of really on parade now, aren't you? And as you say, the ambassador bit, there's going to be kids. I don't even know if it's just about kids, but there's going to be people watching, aren't they, who are going to form an opinion on you or the sport generally from the behaviour they see. And it's really well presented, isn't it? So there is something about the behaviour, even if part of you thinks that would be quite funny if it was in the local club.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think it's maybe there's a time and a place for it, and the World Championships, isn't it? On a lighter note, I'm not too sure on the sartorial presence of Stuart Bingham with his brown suit and orange bow tie. I thought that was a bit of an odd choice, but
he must have a power cut that day. Dress in the dark.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's been good actually, isn't it? It's just been nice so far, and I don't know. I mean, I think if you get tickets to that, if you can sit somewhere near the divide so that you can see both games, then that's an amazing action. I always think it's harsh if you're on one of the tables and you hear the crowd reaction on the other one. You're thinking, oh man, what was that then? What happened over there?
Yeah.
But you're going to get that anyway. Well, one thing I think is interesting, I put this on Twitter actually, and it was about one of the major differences, obviously, between this and all the other tournaments is that in the other tournaments, you tend to be sitting away from each other as the players. Obviously at the Crucible, you sat right next to each other, and I don't know about you, but when they pan onto the players between frames, I always think it looks really awkward. It's almost like just you almost want them just to have a little chat and say, oh, you did quite well there, mate, and yeah, you weren't so bad yourself, and oh, I left you there, didn't I? But they're in the zone, aren't they? I mean, it's never going to happen, is it?
No, I guess not. And I think sometimes if there's a bit of needle involved in the match, it's very, very apparent. I think days of old there was a little bit of banter and a little bit of chat between the players, but sometimes it does look a bit frosty when they're sitting there and side by side.
Yeah, I've watched. I've seen a few people having a little chat between frames and stuff, but you would never get Stephen Hendry doing that back in the day. If you spoke to Hendry when he was sitting next to you, he would just ignore you, he would blank you. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing not to talk to your opponent because, as you say, Michael, you're in the zone sort of thing. So, yeah, occasionally you see them chatting, but, I'm a bit an advocate of just staying quiet.
You imagine it comes down a bit to the kind of relationship off the table, don't you? I can imagine Williams and Page maybe exchanging the odd word because they know each other so well and they know they're not doing it to wind each other up or put each other off the game. But I guess if you don't have that relationship with a player, then it's difficult, isn't it? Because it's almost that thing about how do you break the ice and even say anything because the other player might go, oh, hang on a minute, where's this going to stop? So how do you even do that unless there's an obvious thing that breaks the ice, a terrible fluke or something happens in the crowd and both players laugh it off or whatever. But again, that just makes it so special, doesn't it? That's those things about the Crucible that make it so different to anything else.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, apparently today there was something on Twitter just saying that Jackson and Mark have been practicing together today. And I mean, that's, we've never seen that when two opponents just before they're about to play a second round tie. So I suspect they're going to be a lot more friendly and maybe a bit more banter between them side by side. But yeah, it's certainly not the norm, is it?
Yeah, I think Mark Williams that sort of character anyway, isn't he? He sort of goes against the grain of like what's tradition and what's not, you know. So I think Jackson being a good friend of his, I think we'll see a lot of chit chat between the two of them.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's the one I'm most looking forward to seeing, because I get the feeling that I think Jackson could really surprise us all. I honestly think, from what we saw of him the other day, I know you could have, you know, a storming first game, but he gets his tail up. I mean, it reminds me of Alan in a way, the way he just prowls around the table. He just on top of the balls, and he made it look easy, didn't he, the further he got into his breaks. And I don't think he'd be worried about Williams. I don't think Williams would be worried about Page. I just think it's going to be a fantastic match.
But personally, I think Williams, he might suffer a little bit from playing his friend, but I think on the other hand, Jackson's obviously pretty hungry. You know, he's hungry for success. So I think that might close the gap a little bit.
I think you can only have gained so much confidence from the manner in which he won the first round match. He's going to be all guns blazing, isn't he? So yeah, I expect that one's going to be close. That's going to, you know, for me, 13-10, 13-11 written all over that one.
Yeah, I thought that as well, Brian. I thought 13-10. Yeah, close game.
And we talked a bit, didn't we, about the Welsh players on Saturday before the first game, so you know, before we saw anything. Matthew Stevens at the moment, a few frames behind Lisowski, so that could be a tough one for him. Obviously, we're going to have a Welsh player come through from the second round, at least one, if not more, in terms of Williams or Page are going to get through. Yeah, we've lost a few in the first round, but you know, flying the flag, and we've still got, you know, obviously we're likely to have a few Chinese players in the second round, potentially Thai players as well. I mean, this could be one of those tournaments where quite deep into the tournament, you've still got quite a number of nationalities with an interest, and therefore that worldwide audience really getting excited about where we're going, instead of it being, you know, almost a closed shop.
Yeah, very much so. I'd be interested to see how Hussein does against Judd tomorrow, because we could, you know, he could go far, and you never know. Reach, you know, the quarters or beyond. It'd be nice to see an Iranian flying the flag.
I think Hussein against Judd, it's one of those, you know, he could either really do himself proud because he's got such a fantastic game, he's a great QS, or he could maybe suffer a little bit, you know, playing Judd at the Crucible, and it could be a landslide. So I think it's one of them. It could be really close, or it could be a landslide.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, he was very emotional about getting through, wasn't he? Saying you could see how much it meant to him, and the pride. I mean, I guess the pride in terms of you know, what he's achieved already. But it wasn't that long ago, was it, that he played Ronnie O'Sullivan, and didn't he beat him without any reply? I think he thrashed him, didn't he? 5-0, yeah. And again, you kind of think, well, you know, was Ronnie up for it, interested? But even personal pride would stop you from losing 5-0 and not being bothered. I mean, you don't do that to O'Sullivan, do you? Unless you've got a game about you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, going back a little bit further to I know it's a very different format, but to the shootout, he looked so zoned in and focused in that competition, far more than anybody else. And obviously, you know, came through to win it. Yeah, he's definitely knocking on the door for greater things.
Yeah, and if we look at, we've kind of got our own bit of fun really, but our game, I won't talk about it too much, but now we're coming to the end maybe of this episode. But at this point in time, at the end of this day, so we're kind of, what are we, at the end of day 4, leading the way at the moment in terms of the super fans is front row Brian. So he's on 28. He's got a few on the nail. He's got a few head-on correct predictions. He's doing very well. And then it's you guys in equal second on 22 each. I'm on 20, Kelly's on 18, so there's only 10 points between all of us, and all to go out. So there's been some interesting scores coming through there, but yeah, front row Brian at the moment is showing the way ahead. So I hope he's enjoying himself up there, and seeing him on there with his variety of shirts. Clearly an astute predictor as well.
Yeah, I mean, and there's plenty plenty more first round games to come. So obviously it's easier to predict the first round, although very difficult. But the second rounds, I think, so hard to predict. You know, first to 13. But it'll be really interesting, and to get so many bang on the nail, you know, from Brian, it's a great effort.
Yeah, very impressive. Yeah, and we've got, I mean, the two that we picked overall to win, we all came up with the same two names to win the whole championship, which was Robertson and O'Sullivan. And obviously they're both navigated through their first rounds, so that's keeping it alive in terms of who we collectively thought would win the tournament. I think Robertson got the extra vote out of the 5, so he at the moment is our favourite. But you just wouldn't rule anything out, would you? I mean, we've seen some all through the season, we've seen players come through who haven't done that much in terms of ranking tournaments, and they've come through and done very well. It feels to me like this is a really open World Championship. I don't know about you guys in terms of how you've seen the past few years, but anything could happen here, couldn't it?
Oh, massively. I think it's got to be the most open World Championship we've ever had. If you look down the, you know, what's left of the first round, and obviously the players through to round 2, you could make an argument for any one of those winning the tournament outright. You know, it's going to be fascinating as we go into week 2 to see, you know, where people finish up. But absolutely, there's an argument for them all.
Yeah, I mean, it's so open. I think that'll continue throughout the years. You know, I think every year it'll just get more and more open. And I think that's to do with the way the tour is these days, because you've got guys first round playing the likes of Ronnie, Judd, Robertson. And in the tier system back in the day, you would have to get to maybe a quarter final to play these guys. So there's less fear these days, and I really think the gap's closing.
Definitely.
Yeah, so it's a high quality, high standard stuff, and that's just from you guys. And then there's the high quality on the table. So that sounds like a good time to wrap up for this episode then. So as I say, we'll do this each Wednesday morning. It will come out. We're recording these on Tuesday night. Gives us a chance to look at the last week of action, maybe a little glance ahead of what's happening, and to just catch up with any talking points. So I suppose just until next week, I just want to thank you guys for joining me. And we managed to keep it on the road despite the youngest co-host getting involved. But maybe it's the early seeds of his interest in the sport. Maybe we can cultivate that. But thanks, guys, and I look forward to us doing this again next week.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, thank you.